Hi, my name is Ashley. Welcome to my space. Today I'm just thinking about the fact that there's not just one way to find yourself, do the work, whatever it is that you want to title it, but there's just not one way. And if you haven't heard of a system called the fourth way, that's what system I tend to lean into more when I'm studying myself. It has this concept that it presents that there's four ways, the three ways that we already know, or since the system was back in like the 1900s, it was more of like yogi was one way, the way of the monk was another way, and the way of the fakir, which was more of like the laying on a bed of needles. Monks were to go on top of a temple and find themselves and enlighten themselves that way. Yogis would overcome the mind and meditate and find enlightenment in that way. And the fourth way would say that instead of doing anything where you have to walk away from life completely to find enlightenment, then perhaps you can find enlightenment by everyday life that we already are experiencing. So, for instance, one of the things that I think is kind of interesting is like whatever you're going through in your life, that is your spiritual practice. That is your way to what just simply we could say like is your way of enlightenment. Like how can you find yourself more truthfully and honest, and you can find yourself through the experience that you're having right now. Whatever, if you're becoming a mom, in a relationship, new career, moving, whatever it is, the way that you experience that is enlightenment. So it's not that you have to do it perfect or that you need to retreat from everyday life in order to find the stillness inside of yourself. Fourth way says, how can you find the stillness inside of yourself no matter what the external circumstances are? And one way that you can see that in the system is something that's called split or divided attention. Is how can you hold the attention in your inner world while holding the attention in the external world and responding more than you're reacting. And it's no way, shape, or form am I attempting to teach or be a guru or any type of how can you become enlightened or healed, or I don't think I can really actually say that that any of those systems really offer that without you having the experience. There's another thought too of just like one way that you could find yourself is through a little bit of that idea of language. So language is really challenging because some of the words that we know in our vocabulary don't have a definition. They're more like they have to be experienced. So doing any type of self-work and self-observation is going to be just decided upon you if it's valuable or not, because the experience, the sensation, the feeling is going to give you the feedback, the verification of if this is worthwhile or not. And sometimes through our avoidance of any type of suffering, we end up suffering more familiar instead of suffering more unfamiliar. So when you find that you're having a new experience of suffering, like going to the gym and like working out your muscles and now they're sore, but you know that you have a payout or a payoff later on. So spiritual work and work that spiritual to me means just the relationship with yourself and it being an honest one instead of having just like a complete stranger to yourself. And I say that it's multiple ways, and I do study the fourth way system, and the ways that I think are really more fun and more I like things to be a little in your face. So things that are another way of finding yourself and just finding the truth about who you are is through sex, money, and death. If death hasn't greeted your presence yet, then like you might not know what I'm trying to say. But if death is an experience that you've had, whether through another person or losing somebody that you love, like you can't deny that you also understand that you learned a lot about yourself, whether it was parts of yourself that you learned about and then you just never stopped running from, or parts of yourself that you learned about and that you just leaned into wholeheartedly. Like when I was 15, somebody who was the closest person to me in the whole world at that time died. And the experience that was reflected back on who I am was, and is now very clear. Like, I went after life full force. If death was going to happen, I was going to get after it. Money and sex are other ways to really like find a path. So they all have a way of like, okay, so death presents you with this experience, or sees there are these set of tools that will help you navigate these feelings, offer you relief. Money is something inevitable in our life that we're going to face no matter what either. And so here's how you can manage your money. Here's how you can grow your money. Here's how you can save your money. Here's how you can use this energy, this money, best to, you know, either support your life, support everything that you have hopes and dreams, or it can really be like your demise. You could really have an experience where you're thinking anybody with money is good, bad, or indifferent, but it only reflects on you of what your relationship with money is. So if you're like, all the rich are bad people, then like it's not gonna fucking serve you to be rich. So you're not gonna work towards it, and then that's gonna be kind of your experience of like, well, I've already put one limit on like, this is this if this. So like the ultimate experience of getting to know yourself comes on the question. Like, there is no right one way and whatever, but like I do say that inquiry is like a really great path to just ask yourself, okay, what do I feel about death? What do I feel about this? What do I feel about that? What do I truly feel about X, Y, or Z? And it can reflect back upon me. Like, if I tell everybody that I'm really great with my money, but like I hide $50,000 in debt, like just that alone, like, who am I? There's not a lot of authenticity there of like, I don't have to tell everybody that I have debt, but I also didn't have to tell everybody that I'm good at money. You feel me? Sex also, I think it's my favorite way to get to know myself. There's, you know, we always are running away from the present moment when the reality is there is only here and now. And where is now, and when is now, and where is here should be a question that I ask myself constantly, because it's like, it helps me in the moment. If you've ever had a sexual experience where you're wandering off into an imagination of, when is this going to be over, or what do they think about me, or I have to imagine something else in order to get me off in this situation, you're not in the present moment. And sex done right, and I will say right and wrong, because there's a right and a wrong way to have sex in that way. Like, you know, having sex, which is meant to be its own thing. We are natural humans meant to have sex. We are made for it. That's how we make ourselves, etc. You can't escape it. So if you're doing it outside of those sort of like the pureness of it, and like how it could be like a loving attraction and connection and presence, and if you're doing it more intellectually, like, I have to do this to make this person happy, and like or I'm doing it in a more like shameful and fearful way, or doing it in like more of only emotional, like this person's only gonna love me if I do this. Those are not wrong in the way that like I really want to hammer home, but just wrong in the way of like, there is another way. You can have a sexual life and it not come through the intellect, or, you know, I would say this, I intellectually know that when I have sex with myself, the presence of me being there with myself and just accepting and allowing brings pleasure. That pleasure brings me a feeling of like, anything is possible, and I've like cleared up my energetic field, and I'm lighter, I'm freer, whatever, you know, whatever other feelings I could say about that. So I intellectually know these things. However, because I desire to really be with myself and be with myself in a state of pleasure, instead of like what we traditionally have, like a state of anxiety, worry, depression, shame, guilt, a lot of what I would say in my spiritual practice is, you know, doing other things that make you feel proud of yourself. And being proud of myself is like, I'm proud of myself that I know how to use my temple and my vessel. And I understand myself from that point of view. And that point of view helps me understand myself in deeper levels that like, if I can open myself up vulnerably and allow this natural magic that was inherently given to me, if I can experience that, like, it also questions, what else am I missing out on? What else can I find out about myself? When I started gaining any control over my money in my younger years, it was like, wow, this is available to me. Like, I didn't learn this. I learned this myself. It gives me all of these feelings of self-assured and self-authority in order to play in this role where I have a sense of stewardship over my money, and I'm not wild. I wasn't that wild. I'm still never really that wild with my money. Like, I feel pretty responsible with it. Now, I do have debt, because I'm going to say that in the story, but like, I also have a different experience in the way that I value debt. So death is will continue to always be a teacher, and weirdly enough, probably one of my favorite teachers. I don't steer away from death. Besides the first time, it wasn't really presented to me. I was able to see it differently in times afterwards, and really allow myself to open up to, it doesn't have to be, my experience of death doesn't have to be everyone else's experience of death. And interestingly enough, in my family, it's been kind of pressed on us that, like, you say the right thing when you leave somebody, because it might be the last thing that you said to them. I think a lot of the reason why I do self-work is I don't want to lose myself and lose that I value things like that. So I don't feel like I have to always monitor my behavior and my vocabulary in things, because I'm always showing up as most authentic and as loving as I can, so that when I do walk away from you and you do pass on to the next world, then I'm not going to be like in a lot of guilt and shame and remorse that I missed an opportunity to do something, because I kind of live my life like that anyways. I am a seize the moment type of person. And so when I was recently with my family, I did everything I could to initiate connection and spend time with and these behaviors in order to like create something that when they did die, I did have the experience of like a worthwhile relationship. Whether that's not necessarily how it turned out, but that was my attempt, and that wasn't necessarily like my main thing, like, oh, I need to go in here and have a relationship with him. Just, it's also a way that I just live my life. I am moving through life pretty consistently with some kind of pace that I'm going to keep adding more people in and letting more people go. And the way that I deal with not having them directly in my path is a part of how I feel like authentic, if I know that that relationship was honest and true. Everything about what I do in my daily behaviors is so that I can avoid the shame and guilt of, if I'm not aware of myself in a conversation and I say something that I don't necessarily align with under whatever circumstance, whether it's trying to be people pleasing or whatever, I have to come home in the moments of my own silence and deal with, like, I didn't mean to say that. That wasn't true. I don't actually want to commit to what I just said. Like, I didn't mean to hurt that person's feelings with that, or, like, maybe I shouldn't have said that even though it was true, or whatever. I don't want to live in that way. And a lot of self-observation helps, like, wash that bullshit away. You don't have to live with, like, the someone's going to find out type of deal. Like, if I live who I am behind closed doors and in real life, and I'm vulnerable and I can share my story and my struggles, then, like, you're not going to catch me doing anything. And that is in its own, like, bringing light to things and bringing truth to things is really challenging, because we don't know who we can trust to tell certain things to, and that is, like, that's causing a lot of conflict within us. Like, we're holding on to a story that we, without another set of eyes, is telling us it's so bad, and it's just not. So the inquiry is, maybe you ask yourself, or maybe you find somebody that you trust to ask you the question when you're just like, I'm not lovable, for instance, and then you can tell the person why you're not lovable. And then let's just say you love that person, and that person's never shared with you that the same reasons that you don't feel lovable, they don't feel lovable. And in the experience that you can offer them unconditional love, you have to be able to notice that you just did everything you could do to yourself and turn it around. You could say to this person, what you did was not shameful. What happened to you was not shameful. You are forgiven. You have permission to move on. And the reality is you're really saying that to yourself because it's true. It can't be true for them and not true for you. So I like that there's a lot of different ways to find yourself, and whatever really kind of works for you, just being curious of what works for you, I'm really proud of you for, and thank you for being in my space and letting me share, because the only thing that mostly I'm attempting in my mind, I guess, is just talking directly to you, which I feel like is a version of me when I was trying to find my way through this and get through the muck. And when you go through one way and you find that it's just not really for you, sometimes it's easy to be like, well, I'm just broken beyond compare. But there's more ways. Right now in our self-discovery and mental health world, they're really kind of hitting with, you know, these are a couple of options, but there's more options. Get curious, get exploratory, get into your questions. I needed personally somebody that spoke my language and somebody that was living kind of like my flavor of life. I didn't want the love and light bullshit. I wanted like straightforward. I don't really want to suffer longer than I have to. And in the beginning, when I was doing the work by myself, there was like a lot of spiritually bypassing of like, it could just be love and light. Like, there's more ways. Like, love and light will lead you only so far, but like, you can't keep pressing down the bullshit inside of you that you see, but you don't want to see. The whole point is to see it all, accept it, keep what's necessary, and move out the rest. It doesn't have to be this really giant, shameful, drudging, you know. You could do certain activities. Like, I did a really great training. It was called Wheels Reinvented, and it was healing trauma through the chakra system and going back through our childhood trauma and healing it, but not in a way where we drudge it all up, in a way where like we like look at it, clear it, lock it up, and it's done. And you might have to like once a year revisit it for like maintenance, but it's not there anymore for you. So while I would never necessarily want to go on and say that, you know, there's objective healing and I'm a healer and none of that. Like, how can I say as bravely as possible, this is all inspired teachings. I have invested a lot in other teachers. It's almost impossible to try to do something new without trying and accidentally mimicking somebody else. You're attempting to try on your own stuff, and that's why it makes it there's not only one way. So try different ways. And in this space, I would like to give you the mantra that life is school. Whatever life is giving you is a lesson. So that means that there's multiple, and any way that I see things and I can articulate them is my intent to share, to offer relief, to offer some type of peek behind the curtain. And being a teacher in training, that might be just like where I'm at forever and ever, but that might be like what you want as well, like the expressing of what's inside. I don't know how to experience it in words with you, but I experience it inside. It feels light. There's like the idea that came to me once before of like, you have to express to exist. And a Maya Angelou quote was like, the heaviest burden is a story untold. And there is so much for me that I experience when I'm getting it out. I feel a sense of relief. Like, the rest of my life isn't like pressed, like I need to be doing something. I'm doing it. Or like, what's my purpose? Like, I don't know. Like, action creates passion. Not passion creates action. You know, you just start doing something and see what it feels like. And that's where I'm at. And any other time someone was trying to tell me about myself, if it didn't fit, it didn't fit. And now I kind of know why. And so I just get curious. We're not getting answers. I'm going to continue to learn more about my life for the rest of my life and invite you into the same, because you're not going to get an answer to the mystery of life. The great mystery is just something that you're offering and inviting in to dance with. You're not going to know what it is. You're always going to learn. And that's the elusive part. Like, that's the part you should fall in love with. I don't know. I'll never know. I'll keep learning. And that's exciting. Thank you so much for being in my space. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.